I am super pumped today to be with Alyssa. We just wrapped up working together about a month ago. So basically, on this call, we're going to dive into all of the magic, all of the transformation that unfolded. And yeah, I'm excited. Thanks, Alyssa, for being open to just sharing some of your journey.
Of course, of course.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. So, kind of bring me back to how you were feeling, what was going on in your life when you first initially were thinking, okay, let me reach out to Jennie to explore her services.
That time, as you know, I was a bit of a mess. And really, I mean, to be frank, I felt like my entire life was completely upside down. I was living in Colorado at the time with my previous partner who we had just broken up and just ended a 4-year relationship where, at the time I thought that person was supposed to be my person. So that was like an earth shattering breakup for me, and just so many other things going on, so much stress from my job, just from my lifestyle at the time. Like I was just, yeah, kind of shattered to
Yeah.
say the least.
Yeah.
Um, and so knowing just that you were doing this kind of work, I think I had kind of flagged that, not flagged, but like pinned that for later in my mind of like, at some point in your life, it's going to be very important to reach out to Jennie. And that was that time where I was like, oh yeah, it's now. It's now. And so got
Yeah.
in touch with you and started our journey. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think like breakups are some of the most devastating experiences that we can ever experience. Like it truly is like grieving a death. And I think there can
Mhm.
be an urgency and pressure to force ourselves to get over it. And like I think people around us can weigh in, like, oh, you'll meet someone else, or oh, well, they sucked anyway, or whatever. Everyone wants to like give their 2 cents. But at the end of the day, it's such a individual journey and it just looks different for everyone. And I truly think it is one of the hardest things that we go through. I think it's up there with someone, passing away that's close to you, because you're grieving what you thought your future would be. You're grieving like the potential of that relationship and someone that, especially after 4 years, thinking about, living with that person. And I know that you had moved from New York to Colorado to live with him. And, we're
Mhm.
thinking like, this is it. I'm building like the foundation of my future. And so when we have such a transition like that, it really can feel like you said, earth shattering. Everything is flipped upside down. Like, what is my life? And yeah, I just want to emphasize, especially for anyone watching that might be in that space too. It truly is so difficult and like so important to bring compassion to yourself in like a big transition like that, because it's not easy and it feels so unsafe in our body, and that like we have no control over our lives. When you did reach out, I know we had like our initial like free call to kind of talk about like what the support looked like. um what specifically do you feel like was resonating for you about like the support that my program offers, that my coaching offers, that you were like, all right, I remember that call felt so good for both of us of like, this is a yes.
Mhm.
So what was kind of present there that you felt would be what you were looking for?
Being able to tell right off the bat how intuitive you are and how good you are at really like putting yourself in the other person's shoes, and just being able to connect in that way, especially when like I was feeling like my whole world was upside down and feeling totally shattered.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was that very just natural feeling, that really, it was right off the bat. And I will say too, being on like the therapy side as a therapist, even like no matter who I'm signing up to work with, whether it's a doctor or a new dentist, whatever, but even for myself, like trying to find therapists, coaches, like it is very, very important to me to have that 15-minute intro call or whatever it is. For you, it was very generous. I believe it was an hour, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So just having that time to really make sure that the two of you are going to be a fit, that's really important to me, because if you're not comfortable with the person you're working with, you don't feel like you can, be vulnerable and be open, then there's not going to be too much work that gets done, right?
Yep.
So I think that initial call and just knowing everything that you offered with like the constant boxer support, which I did eventually take advantage of, as you know, and the sessions and just different assignments that we did. I mean, it was just a very like comprehensive, like a holistic
Yep.
package that I benefited from so much.
Awesome.
I hope I answered your question.
Oh, yes, you did. Yeah, and I love what you shared about like searching for that connection, and that's why I like to spend, an hour getting to know someone if they're interested to work with me, because I want it to feel like that, like yes, this is what's meant to be, and I think it's just so important, and that's what I look for when I hire support too. And it's awesome that, you took that empowered approach, like you were in this space of devastation really, and you're like, all right, well, I want support to get through this. And that's also such an amazing quality too, because so often when we're going through hard times, we like isolate or numb our emotions, or it's just easy to do that. So support is just so valuable. Like obviously I've been on the receiving end and the giving end, but it's when we're going through these transitions and hard times, like you were in such a space of what is my life? Everything is flipped upside down. But from my perspective, from a coach's perspective, it's like, wow, there's so much opportunity here to like write a new story. Like, here's where you are. Like, what did you learn in this relationship? Like, why was this the outcome? Like, what's in your control to like, heal, grow from, and like then create what you want. And like it was super magical. So yeah, thanks for sharing kind of what landed for you on that call. So
Yeah.
let's kind of dive into all of the magic that has unfolded, because it was literally mind blowing in only 4 months, like where you are then. I still remember you like sitting, in that apartment and just being like, I just felt like your light was dimmed then, and like, but I could see what was like burning inside of you, right? Seeing that opportunity. So let's start with like, the results, right? So like what do you feel like have been your biggest like opportunities for growth, the biggest takeaways from coaching support?
That I have here in all caps is confidence. And that is huge for me because that's one of those things where I feel like so many people, we want to like work on being more confident or like, improve our self esteem, right? But it's a really big task to take on, and especially to try to do that by yourself. And I think a lot of us, myself included, like even working in the mental health space, I'm like, I don't know what to do here. And so having your guidance on that, um, really has been a night and day transformation for me. And it came in ways and at times that I didn't expect it to. Like I think some of the biggest steps for me that brought me just to feeling like more at home in my own body and like just more at home in myself, really was working on like communication stuff. So like right after I moved back east, I had some challenges, even just like with my family. And then it became like, okay, how do I communicate with guys again? Like, what do I do here? Just kind of not knowing how to do that. Also wanting to create more just like friendships with women, just more like feminine energy in my life, and just learning like, okay, how to communicate, how to like build those things again. All of that. We had sessions on every single one of those things. And each time I could feel myself just like getting to know myself more and knowing what I wanted and needed, and also what I didn't want and didn't need, and learning like how to put that out there and how to actually like create that for myself. Um, Very long-winded way of saying, yeah, that all brought me so much more just like confidence and just feeling at peace again, which I know is what I shared with you that I was desperately seeking for a long time, even before the breakup. Things weren't good for a while. So that's the biggest one.
Yeah.
um, yeah, knowing myself more. I think for a really long time, even in the relationship, and this is also why it was hard when it did end too, was that I just really wasn't listening to myself, like listening to my intuition, which I think a lot of us do for different reasons. For me, this was my first serious relationship, and so I really didn't have anything to compare it to, and just kind of thought like, oh, maybe this is how it's supposed to be, like difficult most of the time, but like good some of the time. So I think for me in that relationship, it was kind of like, oh, you must not be trying hard enough, or you mustn't like, you need to do more work and this and that. And I think my intuition the whole time was like, no, 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 like this just isn't the right place for you. And there's just a compatibility issue. But I ignored that for so long. So I think with the relationship ending, that was devastating as well, because it was like my inner self being like, yeah, like I told you, like that kind of like, I wish you listened to me, but here we are, like, let's go. broken open, like you were saying, kind of like a new beginning and so much opportunity at that point. And then from there, and every day since then, there's been this beautiful thing of like, I get to wake up and be like, what do I want to do today? Like with my time, like what feels good for me today? How do I want to feel today? And then actually just doing that is weirdly a new concept. So that's been a very nice thing, just getting back in touch with myself and that intuition. Putting myself first, I think, was hard to do for a while as well, just like kind of having some of the like people pleasing tendencies that many of us have. That's definitely something that's been reinforced in me for years. And even being like in a helping profession, there's just so much energy going outward. You really taught me how to like balance that and, you know, still be able to do those things, but you call them agreements to self, like boundaries, and just really taught me how to just like maintain my own needs and just like keep up with what, how do I want to say that? Just kind of like keep up with my own self care and just make sure that I am in a good place so that I can feel good, but also like take care of others as well.
What you mentioned around like the confidence, coming back to yourself, prioritizing yourself, like listening to yourself, like all of that is like so possible after a breakup. Like to go from earth shattering, like devastation, what is my life, to like feeling confident within yourself is like that is like what I want for every woman. Like whether the relationship status, whether you're in a relationship or you're single, it's like if we have ourselves, we're gonna lay the foundations for truly everything we want. If we feel confident and at home within ourselves, like we're going to feel like we can have the career we want, the relationship we want, the friendships we want, right? Because it's like with our light dimmed and with that lack of confidence, it's going to feel really hard to even believe we can have those things. And so I love, and that's really like the foundation of really all my work, right? It's work around relationships, but let's start with the relationship to self. And I think especially after a breakup, it's like here is the time to really get to know yourself on a deep level. Like, who are you now? Like what did you learn? Who do you want to be? And like I think reconnecting to like your intuition was huge because yeah, like we've all been there where like we've ignored the compatibility issue because you know like we loved or cared about that person and geez we just want it to work out, or I don't want to start over. Like I think these are all like the common thoughts, like all right, well if I listen and end this relationship, like then what? Then am I just alone forever? Like it can bring up
Yep.
a lot of fear, but truly like it's those courageous moments of like okay, or like I could create the space for like what I actually want. And I think sometimes like you know I know I've been there where like I've settled and stuff like that just thinking like I'll just make this work, I'll try harder, but you know, and while relationships are work, it's like there should be that flow, that it should be a relationship that's elevating your well-being, not draining it, you know? And so, you know, the fact that like you were in such a low place and we're like, you know what, like here's my opportunity to be more confident, here's my opportunity to find myself. And one thing that really stood out about you that like I admire so much is that you had the commitment to yourself even before you felt confident of I'm going to call like my person into my life. Like there
Mm-hmm.
was no like and that was just such a focus of yours. You're like, you know what, I've been through all this, but I know that that's still possible for me. And even if you didn't like fully believe it, you were open to believing it. I think that it's easy to not have that or to feel like, well, now it's over, I'll never find anyone. Like you set the intention in your mind of okay, now I want to get clear on who do I want, like what do I want my future to look like, and like I'm committed to following that path. So I'm not gonna, and that kind of ties into the knowing what you want and what you don't want. Like I'm not going to entertain things that don't feel good. I'm not going to put my energy like into dynamics that aren't going to lead me there. And like that's not always easy to do. So like I think that has contributed so much to like the outcomes that, you know, I want to dive into next to talk about other relationships in your life, which puts a smile on my face.
In this time of working with you, not only was I able to find so much peace and just really fully and truly process the breakup and just like you called it, it's like the death of, you know, it feels like a death and it is in a way like a death of a relationship. So I really was able to just stay present through all of that and let it all come up and feel it all. But then also, as you said, like keep the intentions of what I was looking for in mind, and just kind of set myself up, like put myself in the best position to be able to call in somebody new. And it's so wild to me that it happened, but I have met the person, which I know may sound crazy to other people, but I know that this person is the person. He is my person. And it's kind of wild how he came in. It was through a mutual friend. He was actually about to leave upstate New York to go move to Colorado for a job. So we would have been like switching places completely. But just maybe serendipitously that contract fell through and he ended up not leaving, and we ended up falling for each other very quickly and just so truly. And it was a really beautiful thing to go back into this journal that you had gotten me and read the entry I wrote months ago when I first got back to the East Coast, where I just like dreamed up my person and the qualities that I hoped that he would have and how I would show up in the relationship as well. And so it's really cool. I revisited that just recently now that I'm in this new relationship, and it's like he's everything. Like it's just it gives me goosebumps, honestly, to think of, back then I was like, yeah, this would be nice if he had at least these things, that would be cool. But it's like, no, just, I was able to keep my mind open to that, and here he is. And I thank you so much for that, because you helped me understand that like anything is possible, and just like kind of keeping your mind and your heart open to those possibilities, I think, versus like, I know there were days where I would kind of get into a different headspace of like, oh, I'm in a small town right now, like there's no way I'm going to meet my person here, or like, oh, the dating apps, oh, they're miserable. Like I just kind of started going down that like train of thought, and you just helped me not continue that and just keep staying open. And here he is, and here we are. So it's been a really, really almost in my mind like miraculous turn of events for me in a period of time that I could never see it like happening that quickly. But it's like, of course it did, because thank you, working with you really just helped me get to this place and be ready for something like this.
Yeah, you touched on so many amazing points. And like, it's not like we had like a dating strategy. It's not like we were like, here's how to get the guy. Like, you called this into your life from a place of like authenticity and trust and vision and commitment to self and to your desires. And like that's how it works, like and I love the depth of that, starting with that vision, right? Like, let's feel into this person, because when we do that, like, we are creating it when we like intentionally. And of course, having someone to guide you is an amazing way to like be like, okay, like, how does this person show up? Like, how does he make me feel? Like, what are the things that we do together? Like, what does our life look like, so that you can start to like lean into that energy instead of the energy of like, I'm alone, I'll never find anyone. Like, and it's okay to be human and have these thoughts and get discouraged from time to time, but like constantly leaning into that like creative energy of like our desires and like what we really do want. And like, I remember even like you playing piano and like certain songs being like, oh, this reminds me of like who my person would be. Like this, like all of the ways you were like leaning into that energy, I think supported you so much. And like, also, we've all been there with like you know, like where I live, it's where I live. Like, we always want to blame like or find a reason why it can't work. Our mind loves to do that. So I live here. I would never meet anyone here. Who am I really going to meet? Like, how are things going to happen? And I love to point out in those instances, like, how many other things in our life have aligned to be exactly what they're meant to be without us even trying? Like, how many things, right, had to like, all of those little like seeds that we plant and life choices that guided us to right here and right now, even in terms of us reconnecting, like, me hopping on your Facebook live and like, you're like, oh, let me follow Jennie. And I was like, oh yeah, Alyssa, I met her 10 years ago. Like, it's like, who would have thought that we'd be here? So like, let's apply. And I know everyone has examples of that. So like, let's apply that same thing to like, so why can't I not believe that I'm aligning with my person right now? That like every choice I'm making is actually like bringing me there. I mean, even with you, like, I know you were, had moved home temporarily and you were like figuring out where to live, and you actually saw a condo that like you maybe wanted to buy, right? And
Yeah.
that fell through because
Yep.
it was meant to fall through. but at your time, you're like, oh, that would have been awesome. But like that wasn't what was meant for you at the time because it's like all of these other things were happening in the background that you didn't even realize, but it was all bringing you where you're meant to go. And so I think like just adopting that mindset of like it's all working out, even in our hardest moments, it's actually all working out. And I think like you coming into that vision and me holding the belief of your vision, like that is such a powerful thing because in my eyes I'm like, of course she's going to find her person, so I think having like that person to just like guide you and like keep you in that belief or like remind you of the possibility if you doubt it, can be super powerful as well. And like I love how this relationship has just like aligned. Like it's like literally magic. So and it's the perfect example of like staying true to yourself, getting clear on what you want and like aligning with that energy and like you didn't have to force this. You didn't have to like let me prove I'm worth it. Let me like change who I am so that they like me. Let me be different. Like you were like fully shining in your authenticity. And like I always say, like that is the only dating strategy that I recommend is like literally to fully be you because when we do that, then we give ourselves the opportunity to actually be loved for who we are. And like, don't we all want that? This is a perfect example of how life can shift so positively in such a short amount of time. And like I just love it. I love it so much. That's why I love this work. So yeah, I
Mhm.
appreciate sharing all of that. In this new relationship, like what do you feel have been some of the like differences? Because I know this has really felt like nothing you've ever experienced before. So like what are some of the like I'd love to have you touch on some of like the positive qualities that like just so other women can kind of hear too, like, hey, this is possible.
Truly, this person that I have been very lucky to find, he also has done the work. So it's I don't feel in any way like I have to carry any weight or try to, teach him like how to communicate or how to show up for me, which were things that were present previously for me. And it was kind of like what's the line here, like when do we go from like are we a team or are we just on totally different pages? In this relationship I feel so much on the same page with him. He truly appreciates and accepts me exactly as I am. He truly is just, he appreciates that I've, done this work, this kind of work with you, and, that I am comfortable being myself and making choices that benefit me. Like, he never wants me to put other things above my own health and well-being. He's been very supportive of like, oh, you need a day alone, like go for it. Oh, you need a day of rest or you want to go out with your friends, like awesome. I love that you do that. I love that you like speak up for what you need. And he just is like very reinforcing of me, like taking care of myself. And then in addition to that, he's just super sweet and thoughtful and loves to plan little surprises and has done, from like making me breakfast every day to like surprising me with my favorite wine from California that they don't even ship it out here. So I still don't even know how we got it, but like just being super thoughtful and doing things like that, that's huge for me. I never realized like it's hard because I truly do love all of the love languages, but there's something about gifts for me that I think maybe just from like my upbringing, like, my mom would always bring little things home from the grocery store, like a candy, chocolate, whatever, and flowers. And, I was always like ashamed to admit that, I think, because for me it felt materialistic to be like, yeah, I love gifts, but I think that's a common misconception. And that's something that he does all the time, like just really pays attention to all of the love languages, really, but especially like surprises and making sure I feel cared about and thought about. One of the big things was that we did have like one of our it was like our first kind of like conversation recently of like, hey, when you said that thing, I was kind of feeling this way. And we had that. And for me, that was the most beautiful moment because previously those kinds of conversations, I intentionally mean to say never, those conversations never went well. And that really ate away at my self esteem because it was it was me trying to communicate a need and me trying to communicate when that partner had hurt me in some way, and never truly feeling that that was like fully received or apologized for, or like cared about almost. And I don't mean to paint that person badly, like they're a wonderful person. It was just we weren't on the same page with that stuff. So I left feeling like, oh, I guess I'm too much, I'm asking for too much, you know, I'm just really sensitive. Like I just developed all these sort of negative views about myself. So it's been really healthy, I think, for me to experience being with someone who has like a more secure attachment style and just more just evolved. I'll use your word, just a more like evolved communication style, and just everything is so evolved with him. So all of that being said, I'm saying a lot, but I think the biggest thing that I feel, the two biggest things that I feel are safe, not like physically, of course, but safe with my heart. Like I feel like I can do anything, say anything, be anything with him, and at peace. And that was what I wanted all along, was just to feel like the exhale moment of like everything's fine no matter what, like we're on the same team and we will figure whatever comes our way out together. And I've never had that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and you're touching on like so many amazing points of like emotional availability. I think there's so many conversations around emotional unavailability. And one of those big things is that, your partner is someone who was ready. And I
Mhm.
think that, you know, there's men that aren't ready. And I think there's many women who think they can make that person be ready. And I
Mhm.
think there's also a difference between like it's important to mention like capability, like, and I love that, like, it's not like you were in this like unhealthy toxic relationship with like not a great person. Like your ex was, you know overall it was healthy, right? There were things that, right, like weren't
Yeah.
aligned. But I love bringing this up because I think it can be really hard to let go of someone who is a good person, right? Who didn't like cheat on us or do this terrible thing. It's like, no, but they're good. And like, there are positive things here. It can be hard to let that go because we think like, but this is probably the best I'll ever get. Whereas like
Yeah.
this perfect example of like, if we're willing to actually stay true to like the vision and the desires that we have, like all of those boxes can be checked. And it's not from checking them off of a place of like, I'm going to find someone who's perfect and meets all my needs and does all of the things for me. Like, it's not from that place. It's just that I have my desires for a reason. And so therefore that person exists. And like, I just think sometimes, like, especially like the first, like, long term healthy relationship, we want to hold on to that because we think, well, this is as good as it will get. But you really held that belief that like it can be better and it can be so much better than this. And at the end of the day, like, perhaps like, your ex in certain ways like wasn't capable of like communicating in that way, or probably had some things going on internally that prevented him from being in that place. And that's
Yeah.
also okay. Like that's, he's where he's at, and it doesn't mean he's a bad person. It just means that he wasn't on the same level of as you at that time in terms of what you were looking for. And like perhaps this breakup is going to be an amazing lesson for him to get to where he's going. And
Mhm.
so I think like it's also good to consider these things too when we like don't want to hurt people or leave people and things like that. It's like maybe this breakup is going to be the thing that like helps him eventually like go inwards and figure it out and become who he's meant to be. And like he needed you for that, and you needed him to get to where you're going. And so I think like, we have the fairy tales in our mind. We want things to be forever. And if we love each other, it will work. But when it comes down to the reality of it, there's so much more needed. Like than love and care, we need someone to be capable. We need someone to be compatible. We need someone to be emotionally available. And someone could be a great person and like mean well, but not have those things. And it's okay, right? And we've just got to like be courageous enough to like, lovingly let those relationships go. So because there are men out here, and I think it can be hard, like in our society there's so many limiting beliefs around men, or there's no men here, there's no good men, or oh, she was just lucky, or
Yeah.
Alyssa just lucked out, no one, I won't. But instead shifting that perspective of like, look what Alyssa went through, like in 4 months, like came into her like dream relationship, if she can, I can. You know, like that is what's going to bring us closer to our desires instead of feeding these beliefs of, oh, she lucked out. It was just luck, because this was not luck. Like this was such an intentional path for you. And like all of the qualities of your partner like are so healthy and like are truly representative of when we can align with someone who is capable, like, and can communicate and can share emotion and be on the same page with you. Like what a difference it is. And that is what's going to contribute to the safe, like the feeling of like my heart is safe. And like when we feel that safety in our body and that level of peace, geez, like how much more room is there for connection? That's why this relationship feels like so amazing, is because you're not, you know, your nervous system isn't in fight or flight, and you're not draining your energy trying to change this guy's mind or make him into someone you want him to be. Like there's only room for you two to thrive and be your best self and connect. So like no wonder why it feels amazing, you know, and like I love pointing that out because so many of these other aspects are in relationships, and it's like how can we connect when like I'm on defense mode, or it's you versus me, or I'm right and you're wrong. Um
Yep.
so like you're speaking so much to just like a true like conscious healthy partnership where you know where you are a team, and it's like it's unlike anything else, like truly. And like the fact that you're experiencing this is again, it's so just confirmation of like what is possible. And that's why I was so pumped to like tell this journey today, because like I want everyone to
Mhm.
know it's possible.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for just like painting that so beautifully and like bringing it home, because my ex was not a bad person. We were on just very different pages as far as like what kind of work we had done and who we were on the inside. And so it was like that constant like, oh, I just want like to be on that same page. What can I do better? And then it's at some point realizing like we're just not going to be, and that's okay, and there's nothing wrong with him, there's nothing wrong with me. This is just like right now that our purpose is not to be together anymore. And the other thing I really just wanted to add really quick is that going from being in a place like that where things were not working a lot of the time, you know, we were just disagreeing, we were not on the same team. For me, that put me into a more like anxious attachment kind of mindset. And it also made it really hard for me to like stay true to my hobbies and want to invest in new friendships and all the other things that are really important, which then, of course, probably negatively impacted the relationship as well. So that's another thing that right now it's such a magical feeling to have that safety and that solid ground with somebody. And we've already started talking together of like, what goals can we set as a team? Like, what do we want to make out of this upcoming year? Like, you know, what are you working on? Like, what feels good for you? And just really feeling in a place where I can be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to focus on music again. Or like, this is feeling really good for me, like cooking or whatever it is, whatever hobby. That's been a really nice transformation as well, to feel like, oh, we're good. So like I don't have to worry about anything. Like I don't have to pour all of my energy into like repairing our relationship. It's just okay. Like
I love
that's been a really nice thing to experience
yeah,
too.
I love that you brought that up, because like and even ties into what you said earlier, like he wants you to be the best version of yourself. He encourages the
Yep.
things that you need to feel good, even if they don't involve him. Like hey, like I need a day, like you know I value my alone time, and like you're such a talented musician, and like I remember when we first connected too, like you were disconnected from that, you know, and like and I'm over here like this is a tragedy, you're so talented and like this brings you joy. And like to come back, you know, to come back into music. And I know like we even worked through like nerves before a show, and like I love touching on like some of the other wins too, because like while like yes, this is relationship coaching and it's very relationship focused, like anything that comes up in your life, you know, is fair game. And you know, kind of tying into like would love to hear just like what was supportive about like the sessions that we had, like the one-on-one sessions on Zoom, and then like Voxer, which is a voice note and texting app where we're
Mhm.
between our sessions. Like how did like that combination support you? Like what did you like most about each of those?
A lot. With the sessions, I really appreciated, I realized this like halfway through. I loved how you to begin each session, you would always have some kind of check-in. And a lot of the time it was like, what's a recent win, or like what's going well. And it's almost like that sort of like positive psychology thinking of like, let's reframe and think about what's going like your way right now. And then we can talk about the other stuff. But I loved starting out on notes like that, you know, just like what is feeling good for you. Um, I loved the structure of that. I really loved all of the exercises that we did, especially like envisioning, you know, what I want for the future. There were so many different things like tapping. I had never done tapping before, just kind of like being in that open space to be like, yeah, sure, let's do anything and all the things. Like, just, I think keeping an open mind and just like, yeah, there were some things I'm like nervous to try or whatever, but it's like just go for it. I really loved everything about that, and also the just the additional like having the group workshops that happened while I was working with you. I mean, those just like supplementary things, working on communication, like in relationships, was so helpful. And then with Voxer, and I think you could attest to this, in the beginning, I don't think I was fully utilizing it. Like, I don't think for the first 2 or 3 weeks, it was like, okay, I should go into Voxer. Like, I would make a to-do list item. Like, I was just not functioning in that way just yet. And part of that is because I have honestly never really felt like I could take up space in that way, I guess, like in friendships or in a relationship of like, oh, I'm just going to come in here every day, like tell you about my day or tell you about, you know, hard things that are happening or good things that are happening. So no matter how many people in my life have said like, oh, I'm here for you always, I'm like, okay, thank you. But like, I got it, you know, I'll be fine. Just kind of take care of myself. So that was a really cool lesson. I don't know if that's the right word, but just a very cool transformation for me to be like, oh, it is okay. And look at this person who is like here for me on the other end with these super empathic and validating responses. And just your intuition shone through so much with just like responding to what I was going through, and kind of helping me figure out how to support me, but also your support of me in my situations. That was like the day-to-day stuff that it was like, wow, this is so cool that I have you in my pocket pretty much. So that was nice. And it was really healing for me too, from like a female friendship standpoint of just like not having a close, you know, woman besides like my mom and, you know, like maybe my coworkers here and there. But it had really been a while since I had just regular communication with the same person like that, that was a woman. So that was just very healing to me as well, as like, oh, I do remember how to do this. And I had like some, you know, friendship wounds from the past where I was like, maybe I'm just not a good friend. But I think kind of being able to like practice just like how to do that again, which sounds a little nerdy, but I know that others can probably relate to. So it's like that in itself was so healing for me, and was just, I think, really contributed to my growth as well. So yeah, it all served a purpose, and it was all amazing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that, I love the combination. Like, I love just staying connected and like you said, like being in your pocket because life is going to come up in between the sessions. And so it's like that way when we get to our next session, we're not spending half the session being like, what happened last week? Like when we get to the session, it's like, let's do this exercise, let's do this visualization, let's do some tapping. Like, I kind of have this toolkit just depending on like what's going on. And like obviously individualizing that for each client and and what's coming up. And like, yeah, I love that you embrace the openness of it. And yeah, it might feel like, well, I don't know, is this different, or I've never done this? And it's like, yeah, because that's where the growth is going to lie, when we're like have someone there to like guide us and step outside of our comfort zone, which is awesome. And and I tend to see different uses of Voxer with different clients. And I definitely have clients that like in the beginning they're like not in there, and I'm like, well, I'm going to be encouraging this connection. Like I'm going to remind you that I'm here for you. And I love that. Yeah, probably after a few weeks and like that really stuck, for you. And then I remember when you started using it, you're like, this is great. Like, this is amazing. Like for me to like have this space. And I was like, yes, take up the space. Don't apologize for the length of the voice note. Like you get to have this, you invested in this. Like, and also like, I think like, I do feel like that brought a lot of healing, right? Just for like openness of your heart, the female friendship stuff, which so many of us can relate to, just like, not feeling like we have that. So I think like that contributed and translated out to like even some of our group calls and stuff, right? Like opening up to other women. I remember you even being like, normally I don't share, but like I was able to share. And like, I love providing, like those spaces as well. So I love like the different benefits to both of those. And yeah, to wrap up like this amazing conversation, which we could probably go on for like 10 hours because it's amazing, full of good energy, but just kind of want to end with like, why would you recommend someone invest in coaching? Like for some people, it's like, what is coaching? Like, why would I hire a coach? Like, why would you recommend someone, like invest in their healing and growth in this type of way?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I will be honest, like it's scary. And I remember feeling scared. I was like, okay, this is an investment. Like, is this the right choice for me right now? And then I was like, yeah, this is the right choice for me right now. I think, as I said, just having that instant connection with you, just I knew good things were going to come from that. But also, something else I've been trying to lean into in general, just in life, is like whenever I feel that kind of fear that's not like, oh my gosh, my life is in danger, that's a different kind of fear, but the kind of fear that's like, is this okay? Like, should I? And then, leaning into that and figuring out like what's on the other side of that for me has always been amazing. Whether it's like saying yes to performing a show that makes me so nervous, like sick to my stomach nervous, but then at the end of it, I'm like, I feel so good because I just like conquered this fear again or connected with people or, whatever it is. And with coaching, with our experience, I mean, really being on the other side of this, like I can't imagine, I don't want to imagine what my life would have been like if I hadn't done this. And I'm sure like I'd be fine, but I don't think I would be anywhere close to where I am just as like in myself and just feeling so like good and at peace with my own stuff, but also like finding this person, like connecting with him, being ready for him, just like everything else that kind of came together in every other way in my life. I truly don't think that would have happened. So I just feel that it's always worth it to like step out of your comfort zone, do the scary thing, invest in yourself. Like I remember sharing with you, there could be, like I forget what I was into at the time, exercise equipment, who knows? There's like other things I was like, well, should I spend my money on like this or, but it's like this at the end of the day, like this will bring, it brought me and it will bring others so much more than I think any like material item or like anything else could ever bring, because this is like it just never stops. Like I'm going to continue feeling confident in this way, and this relationship is going to continue making, me happy, like for hopefully forever. So it's like at the end of the day, that investment is always worth it.
Yeah,
Always
for
worth it.
sure. Yeah, and you're really touching on like the difference between like or like what's possible when you invest internally. Like so often we want to invest externally, which yeah, of course we want nice stuff and we buy clothes that we like and all of the things or vacations. And like I think for me that was something that helped me to invest in myself when I realized that wow, like did I spend like how much money on this, because this material thing to make me feel good enough, or like make sure that I buy all the things so I feel attractive enough so that I can find my person, right? When it's like all of that, and it's great to have nice stuff, but it is actually feeding like these beliefs of like I'm not good enough and I need these things so that I can be better, so that hopefully someone will choose me. Like, if we
Mm-hmm.
that path in our brain where like investing internally, it can feel so scary and uncomfortable because it's like, well, what's the outcome going to be? Like, what is this going to bring? Whereas, like, if we're buying something physical, like I just bought, and I'll share. This is from one of my other clients.
Oh,
I just bought this butterfly card, and this is giving me some happiness right now. And so I see it, I can hold it, it's tangible. So I think that's why, like, when we invest in a coach, it's like we're not like physically have something in front of us. It's all the internal work. But like, I think like you're a great example of this. And I know in my own journey too, it's like investing internally, like is what creates these tangible, physical things coming into our life. And more than that, the internal feelings that we can't hold. We can't hold confidence. We can't, but we can feel it. Confidence, peace, safety, calling a partner in, like feeling. And I think like a big takeaway too is just like believing that we can have our desires. And I think that that is such a takeaway. And I think so many women can be trapped in that place of like, it's not possible for me. And like my encouragement is always like, can you be open to believing this could be possible? Could you be open to believing that yes, I live here and I still want to believe that there is, you know, a man, a woman, someone out here that is my person, right? Like,
Mhm.
and it's gonna start with that belief. Like that's really what it comes down to. And I think when you're investing in yourself, it starts with the belief in yourself. I believe and I trust myself that like I connect with this person, that I'm gonna do this, and that like how could my life not shift in a positive way if I go all in on me and dedicate myself to this? Like how could things stay the same? And I know that these are all questions I had to wrap my brain around like when I first invested in coaching too. Like, well, what if nothing changes? What if I don't get results? And it's like, okay, well, am I committed to this? Can I take ownership of like my part in this? How could my life not change in these amazing ways if I have this person that believes in me, I connect with, and I'm doing all this like work on my side, like, you know, and I think that's what it starts with. And like I love your overcoming the fear, overcoming like the ego that's jumps in and says like nothing will change or like you're ruining your life or whatever, like or whatever the crazy things our brain says, and you're choosing to be like, you know what, I'm gonna trust this path. And like it's, you know, like you said, of course if you didn't do coaching with me you would be just fine, like nothing would be wrong. But really like coaching accelerates our growth, right? Like within 4 months to have found the confidence and peace in your person, it's like holy crap, like that is mind blowing. So I appreciate, you know, everything else you shared. Anything else that you want to touch on before we wrap up? I just want to check in because I love talking and I talk so much.
Me too. Just thank you truly for everything and just for being so present and, so open and like choosing this line of work because you do have such a natural gift for it. And I just really appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you. It's a beautiful reflection. And like, thank you. Like, I obviously, like, all of my clients, like, they're so close in my heart. And like, we have a beautiful friendship now. And I like, everything is just aligned. Like, I know that, like, being in my purpose, doing this work, all of the women that come into my world, it literally feels like family and sisters, you know? And so I'm forever grateful for what I do because I get to, you know, like, look who I get to connect with. So, thank you so much, Alyssa, just for everything that you shared. This is going to be like such an inspiring story for so many women. And yeah, I just appreciate you so much.
You too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.